everybody. Good afternoon. Oops. I just want to make sure the audio is working okay. Can you all hear me? Hey, this is Aline Jackman, and I'm the Child Development Specialist, and we are going to be talking today about a very important topic, attachment, specifically fostering a secure attachment with your child. We have decades of research showing that as securely attached babies get older, they're more confident, have higher self-esteem, more fulfilling relationships, are more flexible and resilient as kiddos. They do better under stress, they do better in school, and very importantly, they do better navigating peer relationships and life skills. So let's talk about this a little bit just from a genetic standpoint. Each one of us really has a genetically ingrained system in our brain that gives us the capacity to love, and it's our attachment system. And this system is experience driven, which means that how it is expressed or not depends on the types of experiences that we have, and in particular, those experiences that we have in our childhood. I'm sure many of you have heard of Dr. John Bowlby. He is considered the father of attachment. He was a British psychologist and was the first attachment theorist who described attachment as a lasting psychological connectedness between human beings. He was very much interested in understanding the separation anxiety and distress that children experience when they are separated from their primary caregivers. We can look at history and see that children were not allowed to have their parents with them when they were in the hospital. Some very old, not so great decisions for children that have changed considerably. This is a quote from John Bowlby. He said, "When a baby is born, he cannot tell one person from another, and indeed can hardly tell person from thing. Yet by his first birthday, he is likely to have become a connoisseur of people. Not only does he come quickly to distinguish familiars from strangers, but amongst his familiars, he chooses one or more favorites. They are greeted with delight, they are followed when they depart, and they are sought when they're absent. Their loss causes anxiety and distress, their recovery, relief, and a sense of security. On this foundation, it seems the rest of his emotional life is built. Without this foundation, there is risk for his future happiness and health." The great thing is we have all these years of research to really form a lot of sound information and recommendations behind what secure attachment looks like and what we can do as parents to foster that in our children. So what is a securely attached baby? A secure attachment really looks like when your child is a baby, they protest and they don't really like their parents, their attachment person, to leave them with someone else. So, but when you come back, they're easily comforted by the parent, when the parent returns. And these babies, are considered to have a secure attachment to their parent. And again, kind of what I said in the very beginning, they turn out to have a better ability to navigate relationships, not only with their parents, but also with others, and overall are better adjusted human beings. Just to look at the other two, just in contrast, Dr. Bowlby called those resistant or ambivalent. And these babies resist their parents' departure, but they reject their comfort when they return. And, these babies have learned that their parent is not always dependable in meeting their needs. So that need for protection that's hardwired. And they just have a harder time to accept that comforting. And this can speak to the trust and building that secure attachment that they need. The other form of attachment that they described was avoidant, and these babies may not even protest their parents' departure, and they do not seek comfort upon their parents' return. And these babies, they found in the research, do not express age-appropriate comfort needs, maybe because they assume they will not be met. It's not for a lack of wanting and needing. They do show signs of extreme stress from the separation of their parent. It may not be as apparent, but when they are hooked up to physiological monitors looking at heart rate and physiological stress factors, they have found it more adaptive to hide their feelings. And, while, someone just upon observation, they might look at these babies and think that they're, maybe more independent. But often what caregivers, especially in a childcare setting, might see is that they actually are more whiny or clingy or demanding or all of those things. And as they grow older, they find that they have a little more challenge navigating relationships or expressing their emotional needs, being, overwhelmed even by their own emotions or finding them kind of even scary. So, they sometimes, need help in learning to navigate that. So those are the types of attachment and what this means for the baby's brain. Really, it's about that a caregiver providing repeated and consistent caring of the child. When a caregiver repeatedly and consistently activates that attachment system deep in the brain, the child carries their parent in their mind as this secure base. And this happens when parents, when they read their baby's cues and when they read what their nonverbal signals and communication. And when they get that accurate, doesn't mean they have to get accurate all the time, but when they get it accurately and empathetically, they are really in tune with their baby, and their baby gets their needs met, and it's a reciprocal back and forth. And both the baby and the parent are bringing a lot of things to this interaction to form that secure attachment. And research really shows that parents and influence one another with that face-to-face interaction. And they've even looked at, the intervals of how they can be as small as 1/3 of a second of this back and forth. Baby looks, parent looks, gazing into each other's eyes. So it's that, looking or even cooing and baby coos. So it's a very much a back and forth turn taking interaction. But this deepens the connection and it deepens the attachment with the parent. Research also shows that if parents are able to offer secure attachment, reward systems are activated in the parts of their own brains called the nucleus accumbens and the ventral tegmental area, if I'm pronouncing those correctly. But it's just nice to know that, it also influences the parent's brain, and the child then picks up on how much he or she is delighting their parent, and then the reward chemicals trigger in the same part of the child's brain as well, and it becomes this mutually rewarding cycle of love for both parent and child, and it just continues that connection and reward and deep, secure, sound base and attachment. So in looking at attachment, we can't really talk about attachment without talking about Dr. Dan Siegel's work. And he talks about the 4 S's: safe, secure, seen, and soothed. And he talks a lot about how parents who enable their child to become securely attached are also able, for much of the time, to release optimal levels of the calming, well-being chemicals, which help to calm and regulate their children. We really have a lot of science now to show that, the parents are also holding in the mind of their child. And in contrast, parents who frequently misattune, they have, stress hormones that are more dominant when they're with their child. This is particularly true with parents with, too high levels of arousal, or their own stress, or too low levels of arousal. So being maybe too intrusive, or too low, affect and not engaged in the interaction. But we really want to, try to be self-aware, and in order to be attuned, we have to be, kind of tuned in to our own emotions and allow, the emotions of our children. We have to think about our approach matching up with our child. And we've talked about temperament before, and just, physiologically, is your child, alert and ready to play? Are they, are they sleepy? Are they fussy? How are we responding to them? Are we being, too rough, too intrusive, too anxious, too irritated, using too harsh a voice, or too low key in response to their kind of elevated moment of pride? And these are things that we take for granted, that we all do in communication with each other every day, as well as with our children. We see that, to view their behavior as attachment seeking versus attention seeking, I think is a great way to look at children's behavior, because they elicit this wide variety of emotion and affect every day, all day, and it fluctuates depending on their needs. And sometimes we view attention seeking behavior as negative, or something that we need to punish. But if we view it as bids for attention, as attachment seeking, we can look at it in a little bit different light, and how it contributes to our own attachment with our child. So all of this is, definitely not about being perfect, or to make anybody feel guilty, or to feel like we all need to be a super parent. We're all human, and parents have a lot of competing demands and pressures and life things that come up. And in any relationship, we are not going to get it right 100% of the time. So rest assured, it's okay. I want to share a little more research with you. Dr. Ed Tronick, he asked parents with securely attached children a very important question. Basically, how often do they have to be attuned to their baby or child to have a secure, attached child? And he found that a third of the time these parents were beautifully attuned with their children, and a third of the time they were not attuned. But they repaired this. He kind of called it an interactive repair, by realizing they were misattuned and getting back in sync. And for the rest of the time, they weren't tuning in well, because that's what we do as humans. So the bottom line was that 2/3 was enough for the child to become, securely attached and blossom with their child. So the 4, S's are basically safe and For a secure attachment, a child needs to feel protected, of course. Physically safe is something, but also emotionally safe, safe within the relationship with their parents, that they can be themselves, and that their actions will yield calm, emotionally supportive responses from their parent. Dr. Siegel says that when we basically give a child a safe harbor, they will be able to take the needed risk of growth and change. And when a child is seen for who they are, this means that we are really paying attention to their emotions, both the positive and the negative. And we strive to attune to what's happening in their mind, kind of beneath their behavior. We're always trying to, if you've taken, the parenting course and looked at the iceberg theory, and looking at diving deeper and looking what's going on beyond the surface versus looking at just the behavior that a child is eliciting, and perceiving that why, deeply and empathetically. And when, we all know that when someone tunes into us in this way, we're more likely to feel a connection with them. We kind of feel like they're getting in the hole with us, versus, just, kind of, throwing, something not as meaningful at us. It's like, oh, I'm, sorry you're feeling that way. But we're all soothed by knowing that someone understands what we're, experiencing. Just like, basically, I get you. And the soothe is, soothing's not about providing a life of ease. It's not about, fixing or repairing or taking on a child's emotions. It's more about teaching your child how to cope when life gets hard, and showing them that you'll be there with them along the way. A soothed child knows that he will never have to suffer alone, but he will have to build the tools and resources to navigate the speed bumps of life, and on a, in a developmentally appropriate way. And that secure base is, when a child grows up knowing that they can count on you consistently, time and again, to show up. When you reliably provide safety, focus on seeing them and soothing them in times of need, they will, trust in their own feelings of secure attachment and thrive. So a secure attachment can basically, give your child a capacity for awe and wonder in life, a real sense of, joy and psychological strength. Experiencing that neurochemical well-being, states over and over again on a regular basis helps your child feel at ease, feel relaxed, really ready to greet the world. So really able to manage stress that comes our way. A warm, secure upbringing helps children experience and carry out acts of compassion and develop that empathy towards others, as well as strengthen their own resilience. So they can calm themselves down and think well after something stressful or feeling dysregulated. And, of course, this also in turn impacts their overall health as well. And what this means for your grown-up child, because that's our goal, is to have our children develop into really healthy, wonderful adults, is lots of really good things. The ability to develop healthy, positive relationships that are fulfilling and sustained over time. They're able to share their thoughts and feelings, even when difficult, and are able to navigate, lovingly and peacefully. And it definitely helps build a confidence. And, in talking about, some of the things like we talked about the secure attachment, and then some of the things that don't look so pretty that from not having that secure attachment. So in an adult, some of the things that don't look so pretty or kind of messy or as well are having, challenges with a healthy attachment with another person, like being kind of like just like what it looks like with a very young child. When I talked about seeing the whiny, needy behavior, the research shows can see that, maybe not whiny, but needy, driving people away, muddling, love with control, having triggers that develop triggers of fear, and just, the things that kind of are messy in being able to navigate healthy relationships. So we like building secure attachment and building healthy adults. The best predictor of whether your child will be securely attached is, the ability to reflect on our own attachment history, bringing awareness to our own emotional life. And this can help us heal places where we ourselves did not feel seen, safe, secure or soothed. Sometimes when we're triggered by our children, sometimes it's because it's triggering that inner child in us, and some of those wounds that we have that we may not even be aware that we have until we, kind of bring that, to the surface and sit and think about that. But bringing that self-awareness and, healing any of those wounds if needed really allows us to in turn, give back to our children and build healthy humans for the future. So it's important to learn to, respond to our own triggers with intention, so that we can kind of live with less reactivity and less stress. And, sometimes we need to rewrite certain narratives and respond, in a new and different way. There is more information in this area. There are a lot of developmental specialists who have put out information about reparenting ourselves, and I can share some of that separately if anyone's interested. And of course, the daily interactions, the way we interact with our children on a day-to-day basis, this is what helps cultivate a secure attachment. One of the first things that comes to mind for me is, really being present and intentional in our interactions with children. Of course, treating them with kindness and respect. We're modeling the way we want them to interact with others in the world. We're thinking about where they are developmentally, what stage of development they're in, and we're talking to them on their developmental level, and we're talking to them, not at them. We're not using too much language, above them, and, creating stress. We're accepting of all their emotions. We're really looking at how we, when there are negative reactions, are we able to stay calm and present and intentional ourselves? And are we working on emotionally coaching them so they build those skills, because they're not born able to do that? They gradually learn to self-regulate, but they need us to help them co-regulate. So they need us to help them calm, which in turn helps them learn to calm and soothe themselves over time. Are we modeling empathy and really in our parent interactions, our adult interactions, are we modeling self-control? Are we modeling problem solving? Are we modeling self-regulation tools to manage our own stress? Because our children are keenly watching And they learn a lot, from what we do. And, we want to really try to emulate things that we want to see in them as well. Also, are we fostering their independence? Are we, again, looking at developmentally where our children are and being mindful to not do things for them that they can do themselves, even if that requires taking some extra time? Maria Montessori certainly advocated this, as a, a, a significant, piece of her work and method. And, that's something that the teachers are working on each day. But, in turn, doing that at home is very important and very valuable. And it also, in addition to building their independence and autonomy, it builds their confidence and self-esteem, because they, realize that they are very, strong and capable, and that that in turn, it helps the attachment with you as well, because there's not that resistance there, with their parent. They feel, filled up by you, that you're helping them navigate that and encouraging them to do things themselves. So, really, thinking of allowing our children to face and, problem solve little small hurdles on their own. This is, definitely important for building their resilience and confidence. And I hear the teachers, doing this in such beautiful ways. And having them, get the broom and sweep something up, or, oh, something spilled. Oh, can you get a few paper towels and clean that up? Always mindful to not be doing things for them. And in turn, being mindful of fostering that growth mindset, reassuring them, when they start to put pressure on themselves that they just don't know how to do something yet. But they, can practice, and they keep trying, they keep getting better. So they encourage the process, and they encourage the practice, and they, reinforce and comment on their hard work and how long they stick with something. You've been working on that for a really long time. Looks like you are really put a lot of work into that picture or that building. And I think, as far as treating them with respect, I think that also speaks to how we treat, young children about their bodies, asking permission when it comes to their bodies. Do you want a hug? Asking them. And, modeling and teaching appropriate boundaries as well. Just excuse me, I'm so sorry I bumped into you. Just teaching them awareness, of their body, but being respectful. I would say also that building in routines, that this is respectful of young children and helps with that, develop that secure attachment as well. It, preparing them ahead of time for what comes next, not rushing them as much as possible, giving them a chance to prepare themselves, because that's so hard for children, can be so stressful. We get stressed when we're rushed. Giving them choices, that also speaks to building the independence and autonomy. And it also cultivates a secure attachment, a feeling of, safety and a secure base. Hey, I have life happens to children. I do have some choices. I can do some of these things on my own, and we can create a lot of choices even with very young children. And having really high intensity, positive relational moments every single day in some way is really important for developing that secure attachment with your child. And these are times of very strong emotional connection. They're times that sometimes they just happen, and you just you have these moments of like laughter with your children, or you really connect, or your children get older, an inside joke, or we all know what that feels like. We know what it feels like in adult relationships, and your children, and what it feels like with your children. And sometimes it happens, just spontaneously, but we want it to happen, at some point during the day, every day. And it's not something that you can plan, but there's ways to create an opportunity for that. And it's definitely times, without distraction, without focusing on a third object. There's no, phones or TV, or, could be just times at the end of the day with, cuddling with your child and reading books, or just, when there's kind of rough and tumble play. This is another reason why I talk so much about special time, because it provides lots of opportunities for high intensity relational moments, with shared moments for laughter and feelings of warmth and love, because play is a child's language. Children will play anywhere, anytime. And that is a great place to meet them. But really, seeing your child, listening, connecting with them, and giving them your full attention. That's why at the end of the day, sometimes right before bedtime, our little older preschools, this is where, things, pop out when they finally get relaxed, or things that they wanted to tell you, or things they want to talk about. But just doing things together, going for a walk, listening to music, all of those things that just give you kind of that, one-on-one, focused, just, time to build your relationship, really builds that secure attachment. And if you want to dig into any more information, Dr. Laura Markham talks a lot about attachment, and I share Dr. Bowlby's research as well. And The Emotional Life of the Toddler by Dr. Lieberman is a great book as well. So thank you for joining in today, and I'll stop. And if anybody has any questions,